This podcast is about dermoscopy of structureless lesions. You know, in pattern analysis, we have different patterns depending on which basic elements are present. Lines may form 5 different patterns: reticular lines, branched lines, parallel lines, radial lines, or curved lines. But also, the other basic elements may form patterns: a pattern of dots like in A, a pattern of clots like in B, a pattern of circles like in C, and a pattern of pseudopods like in D. However, in the absence of any basic element, we have a structureless pattern like in E, and this is the topic of this podcast. Now, structureless may appear in combination with other patterns or as the only pattern. Here, for example, we see structureless in combination with other patterns. Here we see a Reed's nevus. We have a structureless pattern in the center that is structureless in black, and radial lines at the periphery. Here we see a small congenital nevus. It is structureless in the center, but not black. Now it is hypopigmented. It is structureless skin colored. This nevus has a structureless center. It's structureless brown and a reticular pattern at the periphery. This lesion here is a dermatofibroma. You know that it has a structureless center, which is white, and reticular lines at the periphery. But this podcast will not deal with lesions that have structureless pattern in combination with other patterns. This podcast will deal only with lesions that have only one pattern, which is structureless. For example, here, this is a lesion with only one pattern, structureless, and the color is brown. You see that structureless doesn't mean completely without structure. It only means that there is no identifiable basic element. Here we see a lesion that is completely structureless, but it's blue. You know immediately it's a blue nevus because this pattern is so characteristic. As a general rule, in comparison to other patterns, structureless is the least specific dermatoscopic pattern. We have no structure, and we cannot use structure to make differential diagnosis. So we are left with color, correct. We have to use color to make meaningful differential diagnosis. We have different colors in dermoscopy. You know that melanin may be black, brown, gray, or blue, depending on where it's located. Keratin is usually yellow, but it may be orange in combination with melanin. White means absence of any pigment, and hemoglobin may be red, purple, or even black. So in the absence of structure, color may be the only clue. Structureless lesions with a single color. Now, what is the differential diagnosis? If we have a structureless lesion that is black only, it's usually hemorrhage or an thrombosed hemangioma. Very rarely it could be a nevus or a melanoma, but usually melanocytic lesions have another pattern in combination with structureless or another color. Structureless one color blue is usually blue nevus, very rarely melanoma metastasis. Structureless one color brown has a panel of differential diagnoses, including solar lentigo, flat seborrheic keratosis, pigmented Boyne's disease, and different types of nevi, small congenital nevi and Clark nevi. Some make no difference between these two types of nevi and call all of them dysplastic nevi. And structureless red is usually a hemorrhage. Here, for example, we have a flat lesion on the palm. It's structureless and red, and of course it is an hemorrhage. Here this is structureless black, and this usually also indicates an hemorrhage. Hemorrhagic crusts, like in the case before, and hemorrhages in the epidermis in general, and thrombosed vessels appear black and structureless. This, of course, you know, is structureless and blue, although it's not homogeneous, and homogeneous is not the correct word because it's not homogeneous. There are different shades of blue and gray, so it's structureless and not homogeneous, but of course the diagnosis is blue nevus. Here, clinically, dermoscopically, a lesion that is also structureless and blue. In this case, it's not a blue nevus, although it could be one. It's an important differential diagnosis. In this case, it's a melanoma metastasis, which is a differential diagnosis of structureless blue lesions. Structureless brown, as I already said, can be a flat seborrheic keratosis or a solar lentigo, as in this case. This lesion here, clinically, is scaly. Dermoscopically, it has only one pattern, structureless, and one color. that is brown. Now, it's not a solar lentigo, and you have to look for clues. It's not a nevus. The clue here in this lesion is that we have the structureless pattern, but also some coiled vessels identifiable here. So in combination with structureless brown pattern and coiled vessels, the diagnosis is pigmented bones disease. This is structureless in red. It's a nevus that has been traumatized, and now there's fresh bleeding, so it looks structureless in red. So what about structureless lesions with multiple colors? How do you make a meaningful differential diagnosis in these cases? Now, the answer is look for clues. This is a lesion that is a nodule. Dermoscopically, we see it's a structureless pattern with multiple colors, and the colors are that of melanin, which is brown, blue, and gray. We also see a clue, which are white lines, and the white lines indicate that it may be a BCC or it may be a melanoma, but in the presence of brown structureless at the periphery, it's more likely a melanoma, which it is. Here also this lesion is structureless and multicolored, and again we see the colors of melanin, which is brown and blue. And again we see clues to malignancy, which are thick white lines, and it's a melanoma again. This lesion is structureless, although it has some brown clots, but its main pattern is structureless, it's multicolored, and it also has white lines. But there are other clues that tell you that this is not a melanoma. And the clues here are comedule-like openings, but they do not appear as comedule-like openings, they appear as brown and orange clots. But the orange clots are a good clue to what? Of course, the seborrheic keratosis. This is a SEPK. This is also a SEPK, it's mainly structureless, but you see, what do you see? You see the clues to SEPK, which are white clots, which are media-like cysts, and again, black and brown and yellow clots that indicate the presence of SEPK. Now, always look for clues when you see a structureless lesion. You have to look very carefully sometimes. I'll tell you the last clue. This is a lesion that is clinically melanoma or a nevus, very darkly pigmented. And now here you see it's a structureless lesion. Now, we have talked about the meaning of black. It could be melanin or it could be hemoglobin. Now, how should we interpret black? As melanin or as hemoglobin? Now, it depends on the context, like always. Here, black appears together with brown, so it should be interpreted as melanin. If black appears together with red, it should be interpreted as a hemorrhage or hemoglobin. In this case, of course, it's melanin, which makes it advisable to excise this lesion. This is not a melanoma, it's a congenital nevus, but it could be a melanoma as well. There is no way to tell the difference.